Hey, Toronto, welcome to How's the Market podcast. I'm Dave and joined by Rodney Anton, owner, operator, and guru of Evergreen Wealth Management.
Go with that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to diving into all things in wealth management, talking about the markets and real estate. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Dave, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a big topic. So I know we've known each other for years, but for your audience here, I've been in the wealth management industry for about 11 years. I'm a portfolio manager, senior investment advisor, and insurance advisor as well. And really, we focus on a holistic practice to help our clients build wealth over time and really navigate challenging markets like we're in today. So we're really earning our keep the last couple of years. It's been a bumpy road.
A lot of volatility in a lot of different markets.
I think it's every market. I'm sure you're feeling it a bit too on the real estate side with what's been going on the last year.
We went from record highs to 20-year lows in terms of volumes. We've stayed busy, active with clients, but it's just the amount of time that you put into trying to find a place. Like for yourself, 3 years?
It was 3 years. Yeah, you were patient. That was a process. Britt and I, we were happy we finally got it with the baby on the way next month. But no, really a great job on you guys. Your patience is something else. And it was a tough market from the real estate perspective.
Thank you. I think what differs with our business is what you're looking for at the start of your search can evolve throughout. And like with our clients, we always have to be checking in and you're like, hey, okay, this is what you thought your ideal product was, but it's actually going to be this, or let's be open to checking out different areas.
We had to figure that out. We've been in a condo for 8 years and it's super easy living. You don't have to worry about, I didn't even know what a sump pump was before we got into it. So we're figuring all that stuff out. But no, it's about going through your process. And one of the things that we really enjoyed was you recommended when there wasn't a fit. Because sometimes I'm like, let's get this done. And you're like, this isn't your house, man. Let's move on. Let's go see another one, even though it's been 2.5 years. So that takes patience on your side as a salesperson too. I get that. But no, we're happy. We're thrilled. We're ready to go here.
Tell us a little bit about your business. Actually, I think you work with a number of individuals at Sotheby's. So familiar face to my colleagues who are watching.
Yeah, exactly. Our specialty really in sales professionals. And that's why the real estate business kind of coincides. So we have quite a few real estate agent clients, a couple of your colleagues as well, our clients. And we just found that salespeople in general have a very specific need. And that really generates around a regular cash flow planning and business planning as well. And obviously tax planning is a big piece. If you're a sales professional that's successful, you're going to have a tax bill and you want to know ways, strategies on how to build some defenses around that and keep more of what you earn. So that's our strategy. That's why we've had success. And got a couple of your colleagues are working with us too.
And the CRA isn't calling. So
no one's calling yet. Mind you, we don't do the tax returns, but we just want to structure it so you have a tax efficient strategy so you can actually slowly compound and retain more. And that small compound turns into a very large number if you do it properly. Even if it's a few $1,000s a year, you can save by being more efficient today. 20 years down the road, that's a couple years of retirement.
I always hear from your first paycheck, whenever you're 16 or 15, when you start working, if you can save X amount of it, how much it compounds to over the years is unbelievable.
Yeah, generally the rule of thumb is 20%. Whether people do that or not is yet to be seen. I think if you're a salesperson that has, let's say, a base and a commission, you're in real estate, it's all commission. Same with me as well. But the general rule of thumb would be live off your base, save your commission. And if you can do that, you can get way ahead because you're forced to almost do these extra savings programs and then you can start accelerating and it gets exponential because that money is in there earning for you and compounding over years. So we try to have that like discipline. It's not always possible. Everyone's structure is a little bit unique, but general rule of thumb, pay yourself first.
I say life happens, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's that vacation or you want to buy a home or a cottage, whatever it is, you get married.
You get married.
All these things.
I can tell you that. A lot of clients go through that too, but life happens. So you got to plan for it, have those buffers, but that's also why it's important to take care of yourself first and treat yourself like a bill pay. Treat your future retirement like a bill that you owe money to, because if you do that up front, that'll actually open up a lot of value down the road. So if you can't save for 6 months, a year, because life events happen, you've probably put yourself in a position where you're already ahead of the game. And now it's letting time and the money do the work for you. It's done properly.
So I guess your clients have a wide range in age, but if you get somebody who comes and works with you when they're younger, you're going to help them plan out those sort of life events. It's okay, if you think you're going to be married in the next 5 years, let's forecast this. And then you move in from buying your first place to a condo to a home. If you want investment properties, that sort of thing, you can help them plan that journey?
Yeah, everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different. It's funny, when I started, everyone was ahead of me because I was 22. Now I'm noticing that a lot more clients are coming in around my age and even some younger than me. So we really have two, I would say, tiers of clientele.
Yeah.
It's we've got the clients that are, I would say, in their 50s to retirement. They're in the home stretch. They're like, I can see the end of the runway to get to where I want to go. How do I get there? I want to make sure it happens. And they're really worried about retiring at 60 instead of 62.
Yeah.
That's like their big focus is retirement, that end goal. Then you got, like, I would say, the 28-year-old to 40-year-old, and they're looking more in the, I've got all these things I want to do. I want to retire early, but I have kids coming. I'm buying a house. I want to still enjoy my life and do some trips while I maybe have a little more flexibility in time. And it's
Keep
about
my financial advisor happy and get
yeah,
them more than 20% they're asking for.
exactly. And we got to start prioritizing those goals. And it's more of that, I would say, that accumulation phase, but also we have multiple things that we're trying to target off, and then we got to prioritize them. So it's more of the plan of what is most important, what has to get done, taking care of that, and then shifting through their hierarchy of needs, so to speak, and ticking it off. So we got clients that have really invested in the rental market the last 2 to 3 years, and that's been a great investment. There's no argument there. Stocks have been pretty good. But rental, with low interest rates, we saw that hyper growth in asset classes, and it was a boon. And now we're actually seeing some of them shift off from it because, sometimes the attractiveness changes. But it's about building that balance. I think you need both.
Absolutely. It's the diversifying. So not putting all your eggs in one basket.
It's the name of the game. Asset allocation, diversification, throwing around a lot, but you don't want to have one income stream coming in generally, because you just never know what can happen. It goes both ways. If you're only in real estate, the market has been tough the last year. That's a very challenging environment if you're only dependent on that. But same thing too, if you're only investing in the stock market, it can go down too, and it can be very challenging when homes can be more resilient. We saw that in 2008, for instance, where housing was a lot more resilient than the stock market. So I think you want that balance, so you're just not overly invested in one area.
It's interesting. The housing as an asset can be more resilient, but part of that is also the ability to liquidate it sometimes disappears, which forces it to be more resilient because there's just no movement.
I think there's two reasons to it, and I agree with that. Number one is it's tangible. Like, you look at a property and people treat it like an asset because that's my house. I own that house. Whereas a stock, you can click a button and it's gone. No one thinks about the tangible asset they actually own. If you own TD stock, for instance, you actually own part of the TD tower downtown. There's tangible real estate that's built in, or you own the TD branch down the street. But it's very easy to liquidate. It's very liquid, which is a disadvantage from holding it and treating it like a long-term asset, but a huge advantage if you need money. If you need money, you can just blow it out and you get the money within a week. Whereas, the housing market can be 3 to 4 months, depending on the market we're in. So I think it depends, but they both have their advantages and disadvantages. That resiliency can actually help in a lot of ways. It can also be really painful if there's a forced selling position where interest rates get too expensive, high unemployment, and then people have to sell and they have to take whatever they can get, like foreclosures, and then you have the bottom fall out because a liquidation. It's like a mass liquidation event. So it can work both ways, but generally I would say in Canada it's been more resilient.
In Canada, we don't have the same sort of foreclosure system as you see in the States.
Very different.
It takes a much longer time to actually have that power of sale happen, which I think is a good segment into what we've seen recently with going on in the banks in the States. Some scary news. Can you maybe shed some light on how the Canadian banking system differs from the US?
Pretty different structure. One of the things, being Canadian, we're pretty proud of is our banking system. Is it perfect? I would say no, but I would say one of the best in the world. Like, we are, I would say, a top country when it comes to banking. The US, their structure is more, they have a lot of regional banks. So they have a ton of different banks.
They've got the national banks and then the regional.
Yeah, we don't really have that. We just have the big boys, the 6 major banks, like, CIBC, BMO, TD, National, et cetera. We have a few smaller banks and credit unions. If you ask any regular average Canadian, there's like a 90% chance they bank with a big bank. Whereas in the US, it's a little bit more spread out. And these banks have, I would say, less stringent protections in place as well. If you look at Silicon Valley Bank, which went bust earlier this month, they did a couple things that were pretty poor on the management side. So they were invested in, I would say, high growth companies, their venture loans, very risky investments, and grew their business by 3x in COVID because there was all this money flying around, all these ideas flying around, do all this stimulus. And then they took that money and they invested in what's called like long paper. So long-term investments, like on interest rates. Those investments are very sensitive to rates going up. And what happened is people started needing their money.
And
And
those rates went up.
the rates went up, so the asset went down, it devalued because they were earning 3% on interest when you could get 6%. You'd rather the better paying investment. So their assets got devalued by a large chunk, and then people needed money. So the only way they could get the money is to liquidate. And actually, those assets were worth less in the business. And then there was a run on the bank, and they had to liquidate, and then there was nothing left. So that was really due to poor management. The risk is contagion, though, as it can filter through the financial markets.
I think the things we see, if you look over the last decade, is you'll actually see regional banks in the States fail.
It can happen. Yeah.
It happens. It's not uncommon when we see a shift in the markets that's so drastic like this. I have a client that works for TD, and we were talking about it, and he's in risk management. I said, I would love to see the stats on how much market share in the States both TD and RBC have gained since 2008.
Substantial.
Yeah.
I think TD's number 10 in the US.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty crazy, right? There's some big boys down there. And I saw a chart on this. I think it was earlier this week. And I was surprised to see how high TD and RBC are actually pretty big in the US now. Yeah. There were, I think, slightly smaller than Silicon Valley.
I see them sponsoring major sporting events. I'm like, oh, golf.
You go to Boston Gardens, it's the TD Center, right? So they were very large. And what they did in 2008 is they bought up all the struggling businesses and they used their backing and they took advantage of that to enter that market. And there's a huge business opportunity to do that. TD is probably the leader by a fair bit. They're pretty well capitalized and they're growing in the US. You look at that overall mix. By the way, I'll say that the Fed, and they did a great job of fixing the problem. Yeah. There was no contagion. They kind of locked it all in and they acted incredibly quickly. And SVB looks like it's going to get bought off and it looks okay. And Credit Suisse was the other one to fall. That one got solved too. There were some losses there, but it looks really well contained. So they did act very quickly, which was encouraging. But it also shows some signs that this market and this economy is probably building some weakness. And there might be something breaking soon at this point if this continues.
I always try to simplify things. And I looked at it, and both the Bank of Canada and the Fed, they said, okay, we need to raise interest rates and we're going to raise it until something breaks.
That's the general rule of thumb. Yeah. You raise until you break.
And Bank of Canada, I think they raised ahead of the Fed. And they also said that we're going to pause just before the Fed did.
They've held off.
So I don't know if they were a little bit more in tune to what's going on. It's also tenth of the size.
There's a difference between the US and Canada in the sense that we're probably more sensitive to interest rates because of our debt. Like Canadian debt levels are much higher than the US, which is a concern. Like it actually is it's going to be a pretty big hindrance on our economy. A lot of that is consumer debt. Look at our housing market over the last couple of years.
When you mention consumer debt, is that like credit card debt or is that mortgages?
It's credit card and mortgages. That would be consumer. Whereas like institutional debt would be like company debt. And then government debt, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But those are their headwinds. The average consumer in Canada has a much larger mortgage than their counterpart in the US. If interest rates go up by a little bit, they're effectively paying more and they're sucking more money out of their day-to-day spending, which is hitting the economy harder. So the thought with the Bank of Canada, if they're they have to do less rate hikes to do more damage to the economy than the US. The US is also running hotter. Like their inflation was around 9 and change, and we were like 8 and change. So they had to do a little more work. The one risk, though, we'll see is if they keep raising and we stay flat, that will inflate the US dollar relative to us because you can get more interest on US currency. So people will leave Canadian currency to go there. So that could be an issue for us from a cost. They generally want to maintain a close ratio because we don't want to have the US dollar be running away from us because then it gets incredibly expensive for us to buy US product, which obviously takes more money out of our pockets.
I think the interesting thing to note when you're comparing Canadian housing versus US housing is that Canadian housing, your primary residence, is one of the tax shields we have here, right? Mm-hmm. Tax saving vessels versus in the States. When you sell your home, there are some capital gains you have to pay, and it varies from region to region. But I think that also encourages people to invest in a primary residence a bit more and also accelerates the market.
It does. Canadians love housing. It's a good thing because it's helped protect a lot of wealth. But it's interesting because if you look at a lot of European countries, a lot of people just rent. It's a normal environment for people to rent more. There's a much higher rental rate.
But the barrier to entry to the housing market is significant in Europe.
It can be hard, right? I would say they higher, more densely populated too, even, right? Yeah. But we're going that way in some areas. Like you look at the Golden Horseshoe, there's just no land available. We've got, I think, 500,000 immigrants coming in every single year, which is, I think, a good thing for long-term economic growth. The issue is if you got nowhere to put these people, we're creating a lot of problems. We have no infrastructure for all those people coming in. So it's like, we do need to grow our economy and we do need to grow our population because our natural rate is not going there. But we need to have the infrastructure to actually grow it properly. Otherwise, we're going to be in a position where we have an unaffordability crisis, and we're essentially in the middle of it. The average person now is having a very hard time buying a home in the GTA. It's challenging.
And talking about infrastructure, you're saying a major city like Toronto with a limited rail.
Yeah, like subway. You go to New York, you go to any European city, any major US city that's smaller. We're bigger than Chicago. We have nothing in comparison to what they have down south. They have better highway systems, like the interstate. That is not even comparable. Look at Toronto, like the 401, it's a disaster. We've got the 407, which is helpful, but they charge for it.
I had a client make the comment to me, and they're talking about moving an hour outside the city. I said, okay, make sure you factor that into your commute. And they're like, Dave, I drive to work anyways, and it's going to take me an hour if I'm in the city. It's like,
yeah,
fair enough.
It is. I live by St. Lawrence Market, and I was coming here, and you're just like 5 kilometers away or something ridiculous. It took me 25 minutes. And I'm like, this is crazy. It's crazy. It's the middle of the day on a Friday. People don't even work downtown on a Friday anymore. I don't know. I think there needs to be something. They're doing some, like there's a new line coming in, but it feels like there's a new line every 25 years. Now it's just more about how do we build infrastructure? How do we solve the housing crisis? Because I think housing's been a great investment, and that's good for the economy, but it can't be can't be relying on housing as our economic growth engine. That's not really a sustainable engine. And we need to be able to have people buy homes. There needs to be more movement. It needs to be affordable. So either earnings got to go up a lot, like I'm talking double, or housing's either got to go down by half. I don't think either of those are happening.
No.
So it's got to meet in the middle. And I think that ideally we would go through a period where we have slower housing growth, allows everyone to catch up to it, and then you get back on your long-term 7% growth rate in housing. But I don't think that'll happen with the number of people coming in.
It's very interesting to see with the population here getting older and how much wealth the baby boomers, it might be in multiple properties without mortgages, but because those wages are so low, they might have adult children living at home. It almost creates a gridlock where, hey, I want to go out and get my own place, but I can't afford it. So I'm saving to, and then that house doesn't come on the market where normally we would see, the owners, the parents downsize to a condo or whatever and create a natural flow in the market. Kind of when you get the stop in it, it really slows things down.
It's just people are afraid to sell because they're afraid they're not going to make money. Like you turn real estate into a speculation.
Yeah.
It becomes a problem because then no one wants to move it. And you have investors flock to the market. Because if you look back the last 5 years, it's been free money. Like you're not loaning any money to buy in, and then you're earning 20% plus a year on your investment. It's like, who wouldn't do that? And it's awesome, right? All you have to do is put a little money down, you watch your asset triple, and you get out. That can't be the reality.
It's the getting out part
and then no one wants to move, and everyone's all just accumulate. Great asset growth strategy. Maybe now you're feeling a little bit of a pinch if you're on a variable mortgage, and suddenly you're underwater on your investments. And unfortunately, we almost need a little bit of that because people probably got overextended. We need people to sell off some of those, bring costs down, and then have a little more movement. We need turnover in the market.
Less volatility too.
I think we're probably through the worst of the volatility.
I think so.
Interest rates are probably not going up much more. Maybe one hike this summer. The banking crisis might have killed that. We'll see. I was pretty sure we were going to do one in June, July. I don't think that's the case. And that I think will add a floor to the market a bit here.
We did some predictions at the beginning of the year, and then I said that we'd see interest rates go up and go down once in the year. And it wasn't based on foresight foreseeing a banking crisis. I just thought that the government might be oversteering too much with it and start to correct it. So it still may happen, but not for the reasons I was thinking about.
Yeah, and it never is. You could ask anybody in December, they would have told you something completely different. Originally going into the year, I thought I'd be 1 to 2. And then probably nothing for the rest of the year. Maybe one drop at the end of the year, like a December. And then we would probably go into that next year. What the banking crisis has opened up, it said something broke. And that kind of wakes up the central banks. And they're just like, what happens next? And now we're taking a look at more at, do we want to raise rates when something's already breaking? Because then we can really break something.
Yeah.
And then you have a hard landing or hard recession. And then by the time you drop rates, it's too late. It takes 6 to 12 months for rates to actually kick into the economy. So if you drop rates to 0, the damage is done. You'll recover out of it, but it's a hard landing and then you're rallying out.
Can you maybe break down the difference, what a soft and hard landing looks like?
Yeah, so the major difference between soft and hard landing, because that's a good point, because that term has been thrown around like crazy, but no one really knows they just say it. A soft landing is when you have a slowdown in economic growth without unemployment rising. That's what we've seen so far. So that's when economic growth constricts, but people don't lose their jobs. There's like unemployment might pop a little bit, but not a lot. If you're still working, you're a lot more comfortable to spend. It's when people lose their jobs en masse, people really clamp down, and then people are forcing to sell homes, things like that. So that's a hard recession or hard landing. We start seeing mass layoffs and the unemployment starts shooting up to like closer to 6.5%. Then you'll know that we're in that. If we see things stabilize, and we haven't seen unemployment go up at all. Actually, it's gone down. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that. I thought it would trickle up a little bit, but companies are holding on to those employees because it was so hard to get them during the pandemic. So they don't really want to give them up at all costs. There is like layoffs. You're hearing with the big tech companies, but there is such a glut of demand for workers. They're being gobbled up almost immediately. I've had clients like get laid off. They're finding a job in a month. And it's like nothing. They're generally going from tech sector to another sector. It's a rebalancing.
Yeah.
But right now there's like, I think there's 1 million open jobs in Canada, 10 million open in the US. It's a crazy number. And there's only half that looking for a job.
Yeah.
So got some space.
When you can't find work, that it really hits home.
What needs to happen first is we need to have the open jobs decrease, right? The first thing companies will cut is open positions. They're like, we're just not going to hire for that open job. We're just going to keep our current workforce, right? That's step number one. Step number two is you lay people off.
Yeah.
So like Meta announced, I think they laid off 10,000 people and they're not going to hire the 5,000 they planned to. So it's a 15,000 cut essentially, but 10 off their workforce, 5 from a future workforce. And that's how they're bringing it down. But some companies are just not hiring as much. So that we got to get rid of that buffer first. So far, so good. And that's why I think we could be through the worst of it. If that does happen, watch out. All asset classes, again, are going to be a little bit of a challenge, except for safety. The bonds of the world, especially high-quality bonds like government, high-quality corporations, those will act like safety because rates will then come down, and those are actually a tailwind for those type of assets. And people want safety, USD bonds, things like that. So that last year, that was the opposite. Bonds got killed.
Yeah.
Everything got killed because rates went up so fast. The government said one thing and did something else completely different.
We've gone back to a more traditional, normalized situation from extremely low interest rates when it's unprecedented.
COVID was ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you actually look at what happened, they just stimulated. They had to do it. I don't think there's any, no one knew what they were doing. I think that's the big thing. But in hindsight, and we all have perfect vision. So I can't go back and comment on it. Like when I was going through it, I was like, we didn't know how bad it was, but they essentially turned off the economy. It's never been done before. It's a crazy thing. So they just gave tons of liquidity so everyone could keep spending, keep us afloat. They overdid it, and they overdid it for too long. They kept that money flowing for way too long. They kept interest rates low for too long. And then obviously you have more money chasing too few goods, then you get a bidding up process, and that's what inflation is. That's why we're here today. And then people need to hire. Then there was no workers. So then there's a bidding up process on employment, more inflation. The war in Ukraine put the icing on the cake with that when, gas prices and oil prices went up like crazy too, because you were essentially cutting out the Russian economy from the global system. So that was the icing on the cake. Now you got to bring demand back in line with supply. And the way you do that is by sucking money out of the economy. So that's less fiscal spending, higher interest rates. So they're doing it. They did it very quickly. I think they had to do that though, because they were so far behind the 8 ball. It doesn't normally happen. And I think now you'll start to see asset classes work a little more normal because they haven't been normal for the last, I would call it 3 years.
Yeah.
Nothing has looked normal. You look at any asset class that's been wacky. People were buying like crypto and what are those NFTs? Like, what is that? You're buying a digital picture.
The digital tulip.
The digital tulip, and you're spending like $10 million. That's when you know people have too much money.
Yeah.
If that ain't a bubble, like I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So you see things like that, and we saw it back in 2001 tech bubble. People were buying company on future revenues. They weren't even making money.
Yeah.
There's just too much money flying around. There's nowhere for the money to go. There's no quality, cheap investment. So they just start buying speculation. Housing got caught up in it too.
So looking at the GTA Toronto real estate market now versus say 2 years ago or even a year ago, when we had high number of transactions, but high demand and high competition, to lower competition, but higher interest rates, which is a better one to operate in if you're looking to buy a home?
If you're a real estate agent, it depends.
Well,
obviously,
not from my
volume,
perspective.
you're not great for real estate agents,
From a
but
home buyer.
from a home buyer, I think this environment is better. I bought a home, so I guess that is a better environment. I was looking in the environment. We got outbid by $500,000. Yeah. And I'm like, I looked at you and I'm like, I'm out. Like I took 6 months off. I'm like, I'm not even
you got a little
bothering.
rattled.
I was rattled. I'm like, this is crazy. This is not a normal market. You want to be able to buy your asset. This is a huge investment with confidence and think that you're getting good value. And higher interest rates will chase the speculation out of the market. And that's what you want. You want speculators to go away.
Yeah.
You want people to buy a home because they generally want to live there. If you want to buy a rental property, fantastic, but it's got to be a good, solid investment.
Yeah.
If you're buying a rental property, you're not making any income on it, your expense is higher than your income, you're not going to do it.
That's got to be a decision, an evaluation through a business lens.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it as an investment. But if it's your primary residence, that's a different.
Primary residence, you're like, can I afford this? Do I love this area? Am I going to really enjoy this home? And am I going to live here for 5 years plus? I think that's the general thought process. You would know this more than me. But from a business or asset investment, I'll ask you, if you were earning $5,000 on rent and spending $7,000 on your debt payment, would you make that investment? The average person would say no, because you could take that investment and buy like a high interest savings account and make 5% risk free today. Like, why would you do it? There's no incentive.
Yeah.
So
I just have to be confident that the long-term reward is going to be
better,
worth it.
Are the rates going to come down eventually? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
That is speculation.
But that's what you want to kill, right? Because you want to look at the future cash flow from a business, and we'll call you a business, and it's got to make sense to buy it today. So technically that rent should cover, I think, that payment, because you're putting a lot of money aside to make that purchase. So we want to make sure the asset is being covered by your investment.
The evaluation is the amount of money you're putting down to secure the asset, to make sure that it's giving you a return on it,
positive cash flow
you're happy with, versus the opportunity cost of putting it in another asset class, whether it be.
I'm talking about risk-free assets, like GICs or whatever, right? Scratch tickets, if you want to get, those are the lottery, a great asset class too.
I only remember to buy the ticket.
Yeah, you got to do it today, man.
So you're looking to move. We talked about that. And actually, you're planning to become a first-time landlord.
Yeah, a little terrifying. My brother's had some interesting experiences with that. I've always heard some fun stories, but no, as I said, like, I think it's really important to diversify your asset classes. And obviously, I'm well-versed on the investment side of it, and that's where the bulk of my assets have been. But I don't want to have all my eggs even in that basket, and I want to make sure we diversify it out. So a nice passive income stream coming from a property, I think is a great opportunity, and it can be pretty tax efficient if you structure it properly as well.
And what's one way to structure it properly?
This is something like I've talked to quite a few clients, and this is like a really, I would say, relatively simple fix, obviously, depending on when your mortgage is up for renewal, but structuring debt that's used for an asset or an investment that's not a principal residence. So if you're like even loaning money to buy stock, loaning money for a business, loaning money for a rental property, that interest payment becomes tax deductible. So if you're a high earner and you're in the top bracket, which is 50% plus, you can then maximize your debt on your rental property, right? So you have two properties. You have a $500,000 mortgage on a principal residence and a $500,000 on a rental property. But you could max them both out at $1 million. So you could have 0 and $1 million, or $1 million and 0, or 50-50. Right now it's 50-50. That's what normal people have, because they bought both properties and they're just paying them both down. Yeah. You could refinance and take the $500,000 from your principal residence, where you're not getting any tax deduction, roll it over to a rental property and get 100% tax deduction. And what that essentially does is it cuts your interest rate in half. So if you're paying 6% today, like we are, effectively after tax, you're only paying 3%, because you're writing it off. Yeah. That's a really effective way to bring your interest rate down and make your investment more viable. And you got to live somewhere anyway. So you're still living in your principal residence, but now you're deducting your mortgage because you're essentially structured it properly. Interesting. So things like that we think are really prudent ideas. Would I necessarily borrow money on a house to invest in the market today? 6% doesn't seem like a really good deal. It's a lot of risk, but if you already have that rental property, you might as well structure it.
Now, the Smith maneuver is something slightly different.
So Smith maneuver is essentially that. You're essentially moving money from it. This is if you have two properties. Smith maneuver is if you don't have two properties.
And you want to take equity out of the first property to secure the next property.
Not necessarily a property. Or it could be generally done with an investment account. Yeah. So you essentially borrow money. So like I pull money out of my house. Yeah. And then I put that money in an investment account. Yeah. And then I have that investment account grow. And then I use that to pay off like my mortgage, essentially. Yeah. So you grow that to like $1 million over time. Hopefully it's outpacing the growth. Yeah. And you pay it off. Now, I know a lot of people that have done that. It's a way essentially to have a tax-free mortgage. If you do it properly, it can take years off your mortgage payment because you're essentially deducting half of it. Yeah. The challenge is when rates are at 6%, are you outpacing 6% on your investment portfolio consecutively?
I'm sure all your clients are.
Of course, right? But all jokes aside, it becomes more challenging when you have higher rates because the opportunity cost, even if you're doing 7 or 8%, that's a good rate of return. But remember, that is a guaranteed rate of return paying your 6% down. So very consistent. When interest rates are at 2%, it was a no-brainer. So you would borrow at 2, invest at like maybe 7 or 8. You're picking up 6%, and then you're accelerating, you're earning into your mortgage, and you're going to actually be done faster. Those people got screwed last year though.
Yeah.
They got killed because 2 things happened is their interest rate went up from 2 to 6 and their asset portfolio went down 20%. So they went like this and suddenly they're in a position where what do? We're borrowing money and we're losing money. So you got to be very careful with it. I would definitely talk to a professional before you do anything like that. Don't just go crazy with that.
That's one of the number one things I tell clients who say, hey, I want to become a landlord. I want to invest in a property. It's what is your plan? How long do you want to hold it for? Where do you want to be? Who do you want as a tenant? Is it going to be a multifamily? Is it going to be single family? Is it going to be somebody like students that are turning over quickly? That sort of thing. And then I can help you find the right asset or the right area to look at. We can narrow it down and help you create that plan. And I'm sure it's pretty similar to what you're.
Yeah, I think it's all with the broad picture. Like
it's appetite.
And that's why I have clients say I want to buy a rental property, and I'm like, great, it's an asset. I look at the numbers, make sure the numbers work.
Yeah.
But I don't know the area. I don't know the type of tenant. Like I'm terrified. Right? I'm getting your advice because I'm like, what type? I want a good tenant, someone that's going to be there for long term, ideally, not turn over. I would rather make a little bit less and have consistency because you just don't want a horror story.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go students, very high income that you can generate,
but
you might be repairing your home every 2 years because it can get destroyed.
Yeah.
So
the operating costs and the time.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of money into it, but it can be highly lucrative. You're putting like 6 people in a house and like you're charging them all like $1,000 a month. It's much more that you can make, but it's also high turnover, possibly high expenses. Yeah. That's your expertise, and you know how that works.
I'm sure you were an angel when you were living in.
Of course, yeah. We didn't do anything crazy. Yeah, we might have had a few.
Don't worry, the statute of limitations is gone on that.
I learned from my brother. He did a great job with houses. But he did all the fun for me.
Now, Canada's introduced a new
FHA, first-time home buyers account, I think is what it's called. It's been announced. It's being launched this fall, even though technically
they announced it. Like a lot of things got pushed back.
But the reason it's being pushed back is the dealers need to create like new coding. It's a tax efficient account. So they actually have to code it with the CRA. So it takes time. So some companies will have it probably by mid to late summer. I know our firm announced it gets like October. So you'll still be able to get it in before the end of the year. So I've had a couple clients ask, but it's a pretty good account for first-time home buyers. It gives you the benefit of both an RRSP and tax or savings account in one. So compared to the first-time home buyers account, which is just pulling 30 grand out of your RRSP, which is great, you got to pay that back though, right? Yeah. And if you don't pay it back, you pay tax on it. So most people have no issue paying it back, but this one you don't have to pay back. So it gives you the income reduction as if it's an RRSP. It grows tax-free, and then you pull it out tax-free if it's for a home.
So say I'm newly entering the workforce and I come and meet with you and say, hey, I want to save for my first home. That's one of my major goals. Are you putting the money in this new formed account first or the RRSP first?
The new account first, no question, because it acts like an RRSP, so it will reduce your income. And essentially what an RRSP does, if you're not aware, is it'll reduce your income by the amount you put in. So let's say you're in 100 grand and you're at the 40% marginal rate, which means every dollar you earn, 40 cents goes to Mr. Trudeau. If you put $10,000 into an RRSP or the new first-time home buyer savings account, it'll reduce your income from 100 to 90 grand. So if you're at 40%, you're going to get $4,000 back because you've already paid that tax to the government. So they return it to you. So essentially you made 40% on your investment.
Yeah.
Now you have to pull that money out of an RRSP at some point when you retire because they want to claim that income back. But the two main advantages to an RRSP is tax deferral. You're not paying that tax until 65 plus. And also tax, I would say, savings in the sense that you're not earning the same rate. You're not in the 40% margin rate, you're like at 25. So you save that extra 15% when you do pull it out. Yeah. With the first-time home buyer savings account, you don't have to pay it back. So you put it in, get your income reduced, and then pull it out for your home. So it's nice. I think it's around 40 grand that they give you per individual, as long as you're a first-time home buyer. So I believe the definition for first-time home buyer is haven't owned a home in 6 years. So even if you owned a home in the past, you can still, I believe, use it. That's for the first-time home buyers account. I'm not sure if it's the same rule for the new account, but which is interesting. Most people, when they buy a home, they're in the market. But some people buy a home and then they sell, they rent for 6 years, and then they can actually qualify. So,
or they move abroad.
They move abroad, come back. Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
Other than volatility to expect, I think it's going to be a really interesting summer for what happens in, I would say, all asset classes, one of two ways. I think that's what I'm interested in seeing right now. It's, are we going to have this period where we consolidate and then rally out, or is everything going to fall apart? And
Or
I don't
slightly
know which
different?
one it's going to go right now. I'm optimistic, but I do think there's a headwind on pretty much all asset classes until interest rates go down. I don't see growth in the housing market. I don't see growth in stock market really beyond a certain degree. We're really looking at protecting and gaining income today. I think that's the main idea that we have.
I'm just worried with the GTA, with the levels of immigration we have, and 60 to 75% coming to the GTA, is how much more demand there's going to be when we have a major supply issue. And that supply issue is not, we already have a deficit and it needs to grow even more to keep up with that.
The
So
deficits,
are we just setting ourselves up for another boom?
yes and no.
What does your crystal ball say?
I'm going to put a disclosure here. I think housing is going to be pretty strong in Toronto, like over the next little bit. I hope it isn't, because I think it's just compounding the problem, making it worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I own a home. I own 2 homes now. Like, I want housing to grow, but I also know how
That is sustainable,
bad it is
right?
for the long-term growth of the city if no one can buy a home here.
Yeah.
And there's no infrastructure to offset it. And like, our the costs are going up like crazy. Like, it is insane. And every government seems to be broke. And we always say that, but it really seems like over the last 3 to 4 years, we've gotten exceptionally broke. And before we go into recessions, generally, that's when we should be banking our biggest buck. That's when we should be at massive surpluses, paying down all the debt from the last crisis. And I don't even know if we had a surplus budget since 2008. And I think Harper had a few, but I know it was Paul Martin with Chrétien, and he had a few.
Yeah.
I believe that was before 2008, before my time, before being in the business. It worries me that we're compounding a problem and we're kicking the can down the road, and at some point there's going to be no more road to kick it down.
What really worries me is that this isn't isolated to one country. It's a global.
No, it's definitely not. There's some countries I think that are handling it better. The pandemic was we'll call it a century event. Actually, it was 1918.
Yeah.
They didn't do it back then. They quarantined, people died. That's pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
And you look at the death rate of COVID, it was pretty low. Was that because they did a good job? Was that because it's not that deadly? Yet to be seen. Like,
It was a different time.
yeah, it was a different time. I think in the beginning, no one knew. You had to do what you had to do, shut things down, because it was a lot of unknowns. But the consequences, like, that we did, like the CERB, all the free money coming around, that has to be paid back. It actually is being paid back. It's being paid back in your grocery bill today.
Yeah, filling up your car. Yeah,
filling up your car. It's being paid back when your gas bill's up. Your home is way more and more. Your mortgage rate is up. That's how we're paying it back. Because the way you pay down your debt, there's 2 ways. You increase revenues, or you deflate the debt.
Yeah.
And what they're essentially doing is they're inflating all expenses. So the actual ratio between the debt and our revenues is actually going to be lower.
Yeah.
Because as we earn more, inflation will actually generate more tax revenue and it'll actually pay it off. So the issue is they're not paying down the debt now. That's my worry. We have another $40 billion deficit. We never even had one of those before the pandemic. It's like, why are we still spending like crazy?
Yeah.
So I worry what'll happen in the next little bit, because I think there's only one way you solve that problem, and that's greatly increasing taxes.
Yep.
How else do you pay for all this stuff? And I think we're going to chase away talent. I'm starting to hear from clients. They all want to move to the US. I got licensed in the US.
Yeah.
Like I'm licensed through our US business. So we can take on US clients. And the reason I did that is to retain business that is moving to the US. Like, we are seeing an exodus of high net worth earners that are deciding.
I think the forced acceptance of work from home and the more adoption of the digital nomad has already led people to look at, hey, I want to work abroad.
Yeah, you can.
Maybe I'll become a citizen in a different country.
We run our own businesses, right? Yeah. So we've always been working from home. Like, I'm in the office a couple days a week. I'm always downtown we're around.
It's
right?
more working from home. It's like always working.
I'm always working. Yeah. I've always been working, but it's like I have a home office. I haven't.
This thing makes it.
Yeah. My phone's always blowing up. I put it on mute. I'm like, surprised I haven't gone off it.
Little FOMO?
Yeah. A little bit. I'm okay, actually. I think I need a breather from it. But do you think that work from home is good?
No.
I thought it was great.
It's convenient.
It is convenient.
But it's trying to do a workout. You put on a whatever YouTube workout, try and do it at home. It's like when you can physically separate and allocate different space, I find my mind works better. Like when I go here, I do this. When I go here, I do this. It's easier for me, but maybe that's
better. I work better in an office. I work better around people in general. I'm just like a social person. That's one of my biggest challenges with like my job is I'm pretty isolated at times because my own company.
I find in an office setting, I guess to go the other way is I get distracted to stop and chat.
Oh yeah.
I could do nothing all day.
Yeah. A day can run away from you.
How about those leaves?
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, you start going down a rabbit hole. But I just wonder, I see benefits on both sides. Like people aren't wasting their time commuting as much.
Yeah.
That should add to productivity. Look at what my wife does though. She used to be in the office at 9:00, home by 5:36. Maybe she had a night appointment. She does some stuff for a company. But now I feel like she's on at 8 every day. And I'm like 8 until 8. And I'm like, it just seems like that commute time got put into work time.
Yeah.
So they're squeezing more and more out of people and you don't even get that turn off. Sometimes when you're commuting home, it's your reset. It's your different, like you're going from one location to the other. I think it's almost better for like our mental health.
I think it's also, I made the comment of went up north to the cottage and like cell reception there is sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah, hit or miss.
And it's nice to be able to like, hey, I'm up here, text me if you need me and I'll check it every few hours or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't feel that obligation to always be on and checking my phone. So
I think you need that break and that breather, but it's just like, I look at downtown now, like it's a lot quieter. And I'm like, is that good though, from a business and a growth perspective? Because we need density.
Yeah.
We're bringing all these people and we need to get them in downtown as much as we can. We can't have everyone going to the suburbs and buying a massive house. There's just not enough land.
Especially not when you want to do that.
Especially, I don't want to go to the suburbs. I'm in Mimico now. I'm a Mimico boy. But
it sticks, man. You're going from St. Lawrence Market to Mimico.
Yeah, I know. It's a 20-minute, 30-minute drive sometimes. But yeah, I wonder if it's good for us as a society in general. And are we getting more bang for our buck? Are we going to be collaborating as much? Are the efficiency numbers, are people working that hard from home?
Well, we saw people
working multiple jobs. They're doing interviews like midday for other companies. Like, it's interesting.
The pendulum always swings too far, right? And then it comes back. And so
I think there's benefits, but
I think the sort of your hybrid work from home in the office, it depends on what industry you're in. I think if you're in a creatives role in a creative center, being around other creatives is good to stimulate it. But going to, especially in the summer where people are like, hey, you know what, maybe you work from home 2 days a week in there 3. However it is, I think
flexibility is nice.
I think that there's more open discussion between employees and employers about that now.
I think the main advantages too can come from things like sick days. Like a sick day was a lost productivity day, whereas like sometimes you just have a cold, but no one wants you in the office if you're sitting there coughing and sneezing on people. But if you can now log in online at home, still get some things done, maybe it's not a crazy productive day, but you're doing something. Or
you're at 50%.
What if your kid's sick?
Yeah.
This happened with my old assistant. Like she had 2 babies.
Yeah.
She would miss honestly like 1 day every 3 weeks. And I was cool with it. Like we knew the situation going in. There's nothing I could do about it. I'm not going to tell her she's a single mom. She got to take care of her kids. Yeah. But now I could have her. I'm like, just work from home. Log in. It'll go directly to her cell phone. Like she can log in. Everything is fine. She can do meetings from there. Everything. So it's okay. Great. I don't even lose a day. Everything's as if it's normal. But I think it's got to be for the right reason. It's to help people manage their day to day, whereas not just work 6 jobs at once.
Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more, you can check us out. Our company is called Evergreen Wealth Management. Our website is egwealth.ca.
All that in the description.
Feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Rodney Anton. Always happy to chat if you have questions. And we'll go from there.
Cool. Look forward to you coming on again.
Yeah, man, for sure. I'll have to do an update in like 6 months or so.
Awesome. Perfect.
Take care.
Cheers.